We're only going to take it down to the field stripping process. We're not going to do a full armor's breakdown, so we're not going to take out the trigger controls, and we're not going to mess around with disassembling of the stock or anything like that. This is a Remington 870 with an adjustable stock on here, Blackhawk Gen 3, with the pistol grip. You know, some people don't feel very strongly about pistol grips or traditional stocks, but the field stripping process will be the same no matter what platform, 870, or no matter the aesthetic looks of your shotgun. The Remington 870 is a pump action shotgun, so we got a slide to contend with. Here's some of the items that we'll be working with today. I've got some Q-tips from Brownells, which makes them a little bit more expensive. A piece of cloth, which is a really good piece of equipment for cleaning. A bore snake for this smooth bore barrel. I've got some hops lubrication and solvent, two standalone products which do two separate things. And of course I'm going to talk about the push rod, but I've got a snake that I'm going to use for the bore. But we'll talk about the push rod and some of the things that you can actually purchase for that. Now, you can use this video to help you with any of your pump action shotguns. They'll all be different because they're coming from different manufacturers, so you might want to look at your manufacturer's handbook when it comes to disassembling, field stripping your weapon. But they all kind of operate pretty much the same way with some slight differences. So I'm going to move some of this stuff out of the way, and we'll go ahead and get started with the field stripping process. I've removed my sling, which I recommend if you're working with your long gun and you have a sling on it, to go ahead and remove that sling so it stays out of your way while working on the weapon. So I'm going to go ahead and move this spacer out of the way. You'd be surprised to find out that your end cap or your magazine extension tube is actually what's holding this weapon together, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and remove this spacer right here so that I can go ahead and get to that extended magazine tube. And now look, see how you got a little bit of play without that spacer. So lefty-loosey, I'm going to go ahead and start loosening up this extended magazine tube. And it's under spring tension. And be careful with your springs, guys. We don't want to crimp the spring or bend the spring. And right behind us, that orange tip that we saw inside the magazine tube, right underneath the loading port when we looked at it. And it's just a plastic orange tip, so be careful with that. Alright, now that that's off, you ready for this? Here's the magic. Bam! There's the barrel. Okay, so we got the barrel off. The slide's going to go into the forward position for me now. And taking a look underneath the weapon, we've got these levers on the side. Let's go ahead and try to identify those. So these levers that we have on the side, when I'm holding the weapon like so, upside down, you'll see a lever through the loading port on the on the right side, and a lever right there, it's down inside of it, on the left side. One on the right and one on the left. Okay, so we identified those. We're going to need to use those levers to field strip this weapon. So I'm going to have to orient this weapon in such a way it's going to be a little difficult for you to see what's going on, because gravity can be our best friend or our worst enemy. Alright, and I'll do this a few different ways, and I'll get some different camera angles so you can actually see what's going on. So I'm going to stick my fingers through the loading port, and I'm going to press in on that lever when the bottom of when the weapon is faced, oriented the way it's supposed to be. You'll feel that lever on the left side that we've just identified. I'm going to press it in, and it's going to allow me to pull my slide out like so. Okay, and then you can see the bolts coming out, and everything's coming out behind it, and that's what we want to get the bolt out. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and take this all the way out. Remember, gravity can be your worst enemy. You don't want your bolt to come flying out of the weapon and bouncing off the ground, because we don't want to take a chance of breaking our extractor or damaging our bolt in any way. So I got a hold of the bolt before it come all the way out of the weapon. I'm just going to place it down on my work mat. This little piece right here that's sitting on the rails is called the flexi tab. The flexi tab helps with the operation of the weapon. It's just a piece of steel. It used to always come as, I think, just two separate pieces, or it was one solid piece, and now there are two separate pieces put together. But this right here is pretty much what helps operate the whole weapon. But when you get it in your hands, it'll just feel like a big piece of steel. So I'm going to place that down. Now that those two pieces are off, I can go ahead and remove the slide from the frame of the weapon. Okay, so taking a look at the slide, we're going to talk about some things that we need to look for when we're cleaning and make sure that everything looks fine. So if I squeeze these pieces together and I don't see any kind of breaks or anything like that up towards the front, then we're pretty good. If I lift up on it and I'm noticing there's no breaks or anything right here, then we're good. If it's rattling on you and it's really loose, there's a piece up here towards the front of the slide, and I'll try to get a light on it so we can actually see that. There's a piece up there towards the front of the slide right there. That's just a nut right there that's keeping your rails and everything inside the slide piece. So some of you might have an all wood slide, some of you have a synthetic slide like this one right here. That's the piece right there that's keeping it all tight together. So if your rails are rocking and they're loose, this is the piece right here we got to tighten down, okay? Alright, so we got that off. We have the bolt, we have the flexi tab. There's the frame of the weapon, so you can see that magazine. I recommend using two separate products, a solvent and a lubrication, instead of an all-in-one cleaner. So I'm just going to go ahead and wipe away some of this fouling right now before I take the brush to it and start breaking some of that stuff down. So I'm just going to wipe away some of this. And it's already looking pretty darn clean. Not a whole lot to that. I'm going to do the same thing with the flexi tab, and you'll find that your 870s are really easy to clean, really easy weapons to clean. Alright. Okay, we'll give that solvent a good shake. And I just basically just put my brush in it, and now I'm just going to use some of this to start breaking away some of this stuff. Alright, now that I've done that, I'm going to clean this solvent off. So, yeah, here's the downside to cleaning with a solvent, standalone solvent. It is a corrosive agent. And if I leave it on my weapons, it will corrode it over time. So when we use a solvent to break away the fouling, get all that gunk and stuff off the weapon, we have to make sure that we actually dry it, all our pieces and parts really well, so that there's none of that solvent or that corrosive agent on these parts, breaking it down over time. A good air compressor really helps with this process, so you can air dry it very quickly. So when it comes time to start doing some lubrication, we're going to look at some of these high friction areas, and that's where we're going to put some lubrication. High friction areas would just be places where you have metal rubbing on metal or steel components rubbing on each other. Those are the places that we're going to put some lubrication. And I know this piece right here, you can see it right there, a real shiny area where we have all this high friction. So obviously our flexi tab is going to get a lubrication treatment here in just a little bit. Okay, so once we have all that fouling broken down and all the pieces, we're going to lubricate some of those high friction areas. Now you don't just take your lubrication and just glob it all over your components. So I'm just going to put some on the index finger, working in between my finger and my thumb. I'm just going to apply it on some of those high friction areas. I'll do the same with my bolt. The only one place where I might actually put a little drop would be on that spring on the firing pin. Just a drop. Alright, let's move on. When it comes time for the slide, not a whole lot to this, as this is an exterior piece and it doesn't really get really dirty. But if you want to clean that your wood stock or your synthetic stock or anything like that, there are some other products out there for wood treatment for your all wood pieces on your stocks and slides and things like that. I'm sorry, I think I was saying stock, slide. So just usually wiping them down with a cloth, or if you're going to use that wood treatment on your all wood slide, will do the job. So I'm just going to get some of this debris out of it. And the same snake that I use to clean my bore with, I'm going to send right through my slide right there. And that's the area where the your magazine tube actually runs through the slide itself. Okay, and as you can already tell, that got a lot of the what dirt I did have in there pretty much out. High friction areas, when you look at the slide arms here, slide rail arms, you're going to see these high friction, real polished steel pieces. So we're going to put some lubrication on those areas. Remember, we're not going to glob it on. We're just going to put some on the index finger, working in between the index finger and the thumb. I'm just going to apply. For the barrel, again, it's a big old piece of steel. Some of these areas up here around the chamber area we're going to clean really well. That's where we get a lot of dirt buildup right there and some fouling. So I'm going to clean this section really well. I might use a Q-tip down in this little crease right here where the extractor rests. And then I'll run a bore snake. So when you look down this barrel here, you'll notice that it is a smooth bore barrel, so there's no rifling inside this thing. It does have some fouling in it, and that snake's going to take care of a lot of that for me. Gotta love the ease of cleaning a shotgun. I mean, very easy weapon. The bore snake, what we see is we notice we have some bristles, like a bristle brush, up here towards the front, and then the rest of this acts as a mop for us. All right, so it's doing a lot of things for us, and I recommend everybody find them a good bore snake for every caliber weapon they may have, because it makes cleaning your barrel and your bore area that much easier. So what I like to do is I like to put some solvent right here up towards the front before the bristles, and then back here towards the end where we have this handle, I like to put some lubrication on it, so we're also lubricating the barrel on the way out. So it's doing all that stuff for me. So I'm going to mop it up and I'm going to lubricate. Really nice. Some people may want to use a push rod with individual. Some people may want to use a push rod with individual mops for the caliber that they have, or patches to clean. And you with a long gun, you'll have to get some extensions for your push rod, and you can buy those at any sporting stores. Extensions for your push rod, but I'm going to stick with the bore snake. So I'm going to take the front end, and I just put it on inside that solvent. All right, and back here towards the back, I'm going to put that lubrication on there like we talked about. Okay, so I'm going to take the front, which is basically just a string, and I'm going to send it down the bore. Once it comes out the other end, I'll wrap it with my hand and I'll pull the snake through. I'll do that about 2 or 3 times and we'll get it nice and clean. So after running that bore snake down the barrel a few times, you can see the difference. Nice and clean, smooth bore. The good layer of lubrication. Very nice. Not a whole lot we're going to do with this. Right in here, let me put a light on it. Alright, right up in here, when we look through the ejection port, you'll see it right there. Okay, so I got my finger kind of pointing at it right now. Let's use the brush. Right here, that's the area we really want to clean. That's a high friction area as well, so we're going to be lubricating right there. That's where that barrel kind of rests inside this weapon. Alright, so we'll hit that area. We're going to clean right in here around the ejector piece. you know, to say it's an ejector's not really completely its job. It does some other things for us, but it does help and aid this little piece right here with the ejection of our shells. So I'm going to clean around there, but be careful with your brush when you're cleaning in there. And that's probably going to be pretty much it. So we're going to clean right in here. I'll take a dry cloth and I'll clean the magazine tube just to get any dirt and all that off of there, so that when my slide's moving back and forth on the magazine tube, it's not really going to have any friction, or more friction than necessary. So why don't we start with that? Take my cloth down the magazine tube, make sure there's no dirt on it. Clean my threads. Use my brush for the chamber area. Lubrication. Again, we're going to find those high friction areas. Put some between the thumb and the index finger. I'm just going to go ahead and lather up my magazine tube right there. Why the magazine tube? Because that's what your slide is going back and forth on. I don't want it all globbed on there though. So I mean, it's just a very, very thin layer of lubrication that we have on here. Remember seeing that high friction area? Right there? Yeah, it even feels dry right there. Okay. We'll wipe away some of those areas so that we don't need lubrication. I don't want a slick weapon where it's going to fall out of my hands. I'm trying to control it. Okay, so now we're going to talk about reassembling the weapon. I've got the slide in hand with the rails facing me. Grabbing the frame, I'll take it and place it right over the magazine tube and start sliding it back towards the frame. Now I'm going to stop. I'm not going to go all the way in. I'm going to go ahead and get my flexi tab here. Now the flexi tab has what looks like a penguin tail on the bottom of it, and that's going to be facing you as well. So I'll place the flexi tab right there on the rails, and it'll sit like so for me. On your bolt, you remember the extractor that we identified, it's going to be facing away from you, or towards the front of the weapon. I'll place the bolt right there on top of the flexi tab. Now that I have those two together, I'm going to start easing it back into the weapon. Now you want to make sure your lift ramp is in the down position so that it doesn't get in the way. Some people have a hard time getting it started this much into the weapon. They can't figure out what's going on. They forgot about the lift ramp. So the lift ramp's got to be in the down position or it's going to get in the way. Okay, so as I'm applying just a little bit of pressure, not much, into the weapon, when I reach underneath the two levers that we identified earlier in the video, the one that's on the right, I'm going to press it in, and it allows me to slide it back just a little bit more. Then I'll switch and press in the one on the left, and that one will allow me to slide the rails and the bolt all the way into the weapon. Now it's in the locked position right now, so to get it to come all the way back, I'm going to hit that slide release or the lock release right there in front of the trigger guard and hold it down, and I'll be able to pull it all the way back. Now doing so will allow me to get this out of the way so that I can put the frame on, the barrel on. I'm going to run it just a midway up, so I got my slide midways of the magazine tube, because sometimes depending on your slide, whether it's a traditional stock or synthetic, it can get in the way when you put the barrel on. So now we'll go ahead and grab the barrel, and of course the front sight faces the front of the weapon. I'm going to place the barrel into the weapon as it's supposed to go into the frame there. Again, you see, so the barrel's going into the weapon. The ring is going right there over the threads of the magazine tube. Once I have that done, I can pull my slide all the way back. Alright, now I'm going to take my spring from a magazine tube. Orange cap is going to go in first. So the orange cap goes down into the magazine tube. Now I'm going to take that extended magazine piece. For a lot of you, this would just be the end cap. And you would press that spring in, put the end cap on. For me, I'm going to capture the spring, put that extended magazine tube right over it, and then righty-tighty on the end of the magazine tube. Most modern 870s have a piece here that's going to prevent you from over-tightening. Alright. Now that I have that done, for me it's a spacer that I slide on. For a lot of other people, it might be one that you're actually going to have to bolt on. So the magazine tube is wider, so when I look at this, I notice how the spacer is wider on the bottom. That's already set up for me. I'm just going to slide it right over. I don't like this piece. I might get me one that actually, a better spacer. This is one that kind of came with it. So I'm going to get me a better spacer so it don't just slide back and forth, in case I ever want to put a 2-point sling on here. Okay. Go ahead and wipe away any excessive oil that I have where I don't want it. I'm going to hold down my slide release, or my lock release, right there in front of the trigger guard. Work my action a few times just because I like that sound, and wow, does that feel smooth. A clean weapon, it's a smooth weapon, and operates much better with a less chance of malfunctions. Love my E70.